You're listening to Kate Palmer from sparkletart.com, and today I'm going to do a quick mail art envelope with my Copic markers. This is the finished product. As you can see, it's a technique you'll be able to translate to journal pages or even cards. You're going to need some masket or masking tape of some sort that you can peel off the card. You're going to need a nice smooth cardstock. I love the Express It blending card. And you'll of course need some Copic markers. Now, this will also work with watercolours or other alcohol markers, but you all know Copics are my favourite. I'm going to be using BV11, BG05, RV06, Y06 and B02. Now to start with, I'm drawing a speech bubble on my masket. Now you could use post-it notes if you wanted to cover this up, but because I'll be using an airbrush later, I wanted to use something with an adhesive backing. So I'm using Masket from Express It. There are other versions of this sticky masking film, but this is the one that I like. So take off the protective backing and stick this down onto your envelope as the very first layer. Make sure there are no air bubbles, and you can lift it off a few times and reposition it. Now I'm going to start airbrushing with my BV11. Now there's not much technique to this first stage. All I really want to do is get a little bit of colour onto my envelope or journal page or card. Next I'm going to swap to the Y06 and again just adding a little bit of colour here and there. At this stage I'm not even overlapping the colours, I'm just adding blobs. Next is BO2. Now this is a nice vibrant colour, so it's going to really sort of bring those others together. With this one I'm actually starting to overlap with the yellow a little. I'm next moving to my RV06, again another vibrant colour. I find that the beautiful sort of vibrancy of the Copics really works well against what I'm going to do later, which is add some black. I'm adding a little bit of BG05 and I'm overlapping the colours again. This will sort of make sort of a purpley colour over some of the other bits. Next I've grabbed a stencil. I'm just going to add a little bit of texture with some of the Copic Various ink or colourless blender. I've chosen to use a blender for this because I'm trying to keep it quite subtle, but you could easily use a different Copic colour or a glimmer mist, a starburst spray, or even a spray paint in this just to sort of add a bit of something else to the background. You don't want it to be too flat. Now I've grabbed a paper towel and I'm just going to remove the excess liquid from both my envelope and that bit of masket on the top there. Now for this next stage I've sped it up quite a lot because it was quite intricate and you don't really want to see me cutting out all of those little pieces. So I have a piece of artwork I've previously drawn. It's one of my journal pages, and what I'm doing is I'm creating my own stencil or my own mask. Now obviously I didn't want to cut out sort of squillions of tiny little pieces, so I'm keeping it quite bold. Now it won't be exactly like my original, but it'll be close. Now this was the part that took me quite some time, cutting out all of those little bits, and I managed to cut out a few pieces I really shouldn't have, so I just stuck those back down later. It's nice that you can do that. So make sure that you cut neatly, don't leave any jagged edges, do your best to not cut out any of the pieces that you'll need later. Now the trickiest part on this entire thing was peeling my very fine masket stencil off the backing and sticking it to the envelope. I have to confess it took me about 4 tries until I got this nice and flat with all of the pieces exactly where they needed to go. So you can see here I've got the speech bubble and the face, but because I put the speech bubble down first, it'll be white and the face will be those beautiful colours that we've added to the envelope. I was really quite excited about that. So it'll have a bit of variation and it leaves a bit of space for journaling if you're doing it in a journal page or writing. I've got some black gesso and a stippling brush, and what I'm doing is a technique called dry brushing, and basically it means you don't have very much liquid on the brush at once and you make sure that you do not brush it in water, get it wet, anything like that. So the drier it is, the better effect that you will get, the neater the outline over that stencil will be. And because it's the golden black gesso. It's this wonderful matte black when it dries. So it just covers everything so beautifully. All I can say is make sure you really work it into all of those little bits and crevices of your stencil so that you get a really nice image at the end. Now, because this is self-adhesive, when I've stuck it down, I don't really have to worry about holding it or having it shift while I'm going over the top with my paintbrush. All I need to worry about is that as I take it off, I don't put an inky painty finger on my image. Now, I've let it dry for a couple of minutes, but as you can see, it's not completely set. It's touch dry. So now that it's touch dry, I'm just going to very carefully peel my image off. Now, the masket is really kind of a one-use kind of thing, especially when you've done an image as fine as this. So as you peel it off, it's not unexpected that it will tear away. So I kind of knew that going in, so it's not really an issue for me. So I'm just peeling it off. Now you can see how fine some of those cuts were, and it's still giving a beautiful, beautiful result. And now I'm going to swap to using a little pair of tweezers in an attempt not to get inky fingers on my image. Now I didn't quite make it. I did get a couple of ink spots, but if you're quick, you can remove these with a wet paintbrush. Now that I've peeled it away, you can see that I've got a beautiful coloured image and that white ready to go, ready to journal onto. Now, I'm using my Copic multi-liners to fill in and sort of embellish any of those black bits a little. So because it's a stencil, and I of course could not do it perfectly, I'm going to need to fix a few little bits up. So in the eye where I had to leave a little bit of space so that she had a pupil, I'll need to colour that. The multi-liners go really well over the Copic products as they're supposed to, so you don't have any worries there. I also didn't have any real issue with them looking too different to the black gesso because they're also dry matte. So I was really happy with this. So it just needed a little bit of embellishing to finish it off. So a little bit of sort of reshaping some of the facial features, adding in her iris for the eye, and just sort of working on that hair a little bit. And of course, it needed a dressing since this one is an envelope. Now, as you can see, I've used a black pencil to retain the matte finish, and that worked really well. So I went over with my Copic multi-liners to sort of refine the design, and then a black pencil to finish it off. Now I've got my At You Spicker pen, just the clear one for the eye, just to give it a little bit of sparkle, because you know I like sparkle. And I've just free-handed a little bit of journal writing here, or as this was, envelope addressing. And I find that if I'm just sort of doing this and letting the letters flow as they will and embellishing as I feel like, I'm much happier with it than if I tried to plan it. So that's kind of what I do these days. I'm using my At You Spicker pens for a little bit of sparkle on here as well, just so it sort of matches in with a little tiny bit of colour. And I'm quite happy with how this turned out. So it's quite different. It's something I haven't tried before, and it was so much fun. So I'll probably do this kind of thing on a journal page at some point in the future because it worked so darn well. And I love, really love that beautiful background with the black stenciling over the top to give you an image. Really enjoyed doing this. And in spite of the stencil being a bit fiddly, love how it turned out. So I hope you've enjoyed this and it's given you an idea for either a journal page or a card or even an envelope front like I've done. I'll be back with more soon. Bye.